Hi everyone, Jennifer Roig-Francolí here. I'm coming on spontaneously to talk about something that just came up in a coaching session with one of my private coaching clients. He's a violinist and he's preparing for an upcoming audition. And something came up that I thought was really worth sharing as I was working with him. So, and this has nothing to do specifically with this person, it's just this came up with this person. So it's not a personal or individual thing in the least. This is a general thing that applies to me, applies to absolutely anybody, and applies to you, even though I may not know you personally. And by the way, if you're here and you want to say hello and interact with me personally, we can do that in the chat. I'd love to, say hello to you. I can see some of you are coming on, which is great. So here's what came up. So after my student played a phrase, we stopped and talked about it. And I asked him, what was your experience of that? And he proceeded to tell me in great detail. He was very aware of what had happened. He told me in great detail about, this happened with my playing, this sounded like this shift did that, this happened with this note. He was very, very clear and aware of what was happening to the music. And then I asked him, well, what was your experience of yourself while you were playing that? And again, he was really, very conscious of that as well. So that was great. But what came up, and I had never really said it this way before to him or anyone in my classes or to myself, I hadn't, this is the first time it was so clear to me, which is why I'm sharing it here with you, that there are two ways to assess our own performance, so to speak. And by the way, as musicians, we're constantly assessing our performance when we're practicing. It's kind of what we do, you play through something and the first thing you do is make an assessment. Okay, how was it? And you may do this very consciously or unconsciously, but aren't we all kind of, wanting to, our habit is to usually like find the things that went wrong, right? To this student's credit, first thing that he said was that, I thought it was pretty good. So, I mean, even that, like A+++, because to be able to appreciate the good things that we do when we're playing, that's like advanced, right? Most of us are so self-critical and we're really good at finding what was not so good, what didn't sound good, what was out of tune, what was scratchy. We're our own worst critics, right? Can you relate to that? Just, tell me in the comments if you can relate to being your own worst critic. I certainly spent a lot of my life being we all are our worst critics, right? So I can relate to that as well. So to this student's credit, he actually pointed out some things that were good, and that was great. But again, back to the point, what I noticed is that the things that he was commenting on first, when I asked, well, how did that go? What was your experience of that? The things that he mentioned were all about the actual music that came out, right? The shift, the sound quality, all those things. So it was all about the results of his performance, all about the thing that he had produced, right? So that's the habitual, typical way that we assess our performance. And I want to just give you this idea to play with. That's fine, you can do that. But what if you could make your experience of the performance more important? And what I mean by that is because then I asked him, well, what was your experience of yourself as you were playing that phrase? In Alexander technique, we call that the use of the self. How were you using yourself as you were playing? What were you doing with your mind? What was happening with your body? Were you noticing any easing in you? Were you aware of tension? Were you aware of things getting stuck? Were things flowing inside of you? What was happening to you energetically, emotionally? It's like, what was happening to you as you were playing that phrase or practicing that phrase? Whether it was a practice session or, in front of an audience is irrelevant. What was happening to you as you did that? Were you aware as you were playing of what was happening to you? So Mio Morales, my partner, he's the creator of what he calls Primal Alexander, which is a revolutionary touch-free way of learning and practicing the Alexander technique. That's what I specialize in. It's touch-free, right? So you don't need a teacher's hands to help you. And in fact, you learn how to use your own thinking, your self-observational skills, your experimental skills. You learn very specific ways to do that for yourself, so you're not actually dependent on a teacher. So you have something to work on with yourself every single day in between sessions. So I'm giving you a lot here, but to come back to my point with this video, there are two ways to assess your playing after you're done. The results of what you just did, or your experience of what you did. And by far, the second way is not our habitual way. It's not how we were trained. It's not how we were taught to assess our performance, but it is a way more effective way to improve and learn, speed up our progress. And so I wanted to just share that with you, because if you can learn to pay attention to what's happening to you as you are practicing, as you are performing, and you can do that free of judgment, when you're really present, and you're in learner mode, you are not in judging mode. This is not about self-criticism. It's about self-observation. It's about becoming a witness to your own experience. In that moment of observation itself, you are allowing things to change and improve in the way that you want them to go. There's so much more I could say about this. I do talk about this endlessly with my students, right? But I wanted to just share this with you, that there are two ways, and I encourage you to experiment with the second way, which is by far better, more effective, more helpful in, like I just said, speeding up your progress, making you a better musician. It helps you be more flexible and open and free. But there is a very, very specific way to do this, right? If you're not my student, you've never worked with me before, just experiment with this idea. Whatever it means to you, you can play with it and experiment with it. But if you really want to learn the system that I teach to be able to do this very systematically, I call it the Art of Freedom method. The Art of Freedom method for conscious living and masterful artistry. And the very first step you can learn on your own. It is Mio Morales's Primal Alexander etude called TheCyCle. If you're watching this in my Facebook group, The Musician's Advantage with Jennifer Roig-Francolí, you can go to the guides section. There is a video, or maybe it's in the featured section. I don't remember where it is. But it's a video on YouTube that's called the Best Alexander Technique Exercise. You can even search that and my name and it'll pop up. So you can learn how to do constructive thinking with what is called TheCyCle. It's the first step in learning how to do some of what I'm talking about here. But there are many, many more awareness etudes that I teach. TheCyCle is actually the only one that doesn't have movement in it. It's more meditative, but it teaches you how to do this magical thing called constructive thinking. It calms the nervous system. It helps you become more observant, but in a less critical way. So I would start there, and then if you want to learn more about, how can I become a witness that's not judging and self-critical and negative about myself all the time, just reach out to me and ask me how you can learn the next steps, and I'll tell you. There are plenty of good options for that, so I'd be happy to hear from you. We can talk about that. So for now, just play with this idea that there are two ways to assess your playing. One is result driven. How did it sound? Did I hit the shift? Was it in tune? I mean, all these things about the performance, the musical performance itself. That's one way. That's the habitual way that we were taught, everybody learned, which I'm sure you do all the time. The other new and weird way, maybe for some of you, is to evaluate your experience in terms of your experience of yourself. What was actually happening to me as I did that? Was I intensely focused? Was I getting tight? Or was I feeling free and curious and open and, enjoying myself? Or was I, really, kind of tight and really wanting to get it in tune and working hard and all that stuff? You just want to find out what's actually happening. So you get to know yourself better, and then learn how to add in constructive thinking. So I hope this is useful, and I would really, really love to get your feedback. So if you're watching now or you're watching the replay later, if any of this was interesting, I would just be very grateful for a comment. It's nice to get the, two-way thing going. Sometimes I feel like it's just me out there. But I really appreciate your comments. Not only that, but Facebook doesn't show stuff unless people comment or do emojis or whatever. So you're doing me a favor and the other people who watch a favor if you comment below and hit those emojis, just because it'll show more people, and then more people will be exposed to this idea. So if you found it useful, I'd be very grateful if you would do that so other people can have a chance to watch it. So thanks for being here, and I look forward to hearing from you. And if you want to learn more, just let me know. Okay? Have fun. Happy practicing. Lots of love. Bye.